Good morning, this is Cody Hendrickson. Today we're going to be looking at how to do arrays using C++. So we're going to be looking at the code for C++ for arrays. We're going to use them as a built-in type because they're built into C++ just like they are in many other languages. And in C++, they're actually, the variable for the array is actually a pointer, but we'll also be referring to them with pointers as well as part of the actual reference to them inside our code when we look at them throughout class. When we build an array in C++, unlike Java and many other languages, there is no requirement to call new for that, like we do in the Java when we say it's a new array. We simply just define the type and the size of the array when we create it. Now, continue with the idea that arrays are the hipster of code. C++ arrays are still quite hipster. There are no methods that arrays have as built-in type. And additionally, there is no size variable built in. There is no .length. So arrays in C++ are actually ultra hipster. So we'll see how we deal with that here in just a bit. But we have to actually make sure that when we deal with arrays inside our code that we keep track of the parameter for it, where it has the idea of the number of elements in that array passed either as a parameter or as a class data member. And we'll see that repeatedly throughout these notes. Some more stuff with arrayness. We can have, again, any type of data, whether it's pre-built in or defined by us, can be stored as an array, string, int, pointer, char, or car. We access them still with the idea of using the square brackets to indicate the position of that. Again, that still starts at 0 like always and goes to the number of elements minus 1 that we have inside our array. We can actually manually determine the size of the array. By doing that, we use a little bit of math using the size of keyword, passing it the array name for the numerator, and dividing that by the size of and the dereference pointer for the array name itself. For declaration on an array, if you're not going to define it immediately, you do need a pointer to the type of object that you're going to store inside that array. So as you can see, we have type pointer name, where we define the actual variable for it. And then when we're ready to initialize it with the number of items that we wish to put inside that array, we'd say name equals new type and sub size. If we are immediately creating the array and we have access to that for the number of items we're going to put inside it right away, we use the type and then name and size right there, which initializes it for that, and we can then access individual spots as needed. So we can see right here in our .h file, we have the use of that pointer initialization. We have the weird thing pointer called stuff, and that's our pointer reference that we'll be using to actually store the array. And we have a parameter that's a data member, we have a data member called stuff size, which refers to the size of that array. So we can have access to the information that's attached to that. And then we initialize that inside the constructor in the .cpp file. As you can see, we say we have to do our stuff size first. We want to make sure you define that first so you can actually refer to the actual size of that content. And then we refer to our stuff array. We say it's a new weird thing array of that size. And then we call our build array, our helper method that we can use to actually go through and put those components inside that. When we're assigning into an array, it's just like Java. Again, we use the name of the array subposition equals the value or the variable that we're going to be putting inside that. And again, reminder, there is no .length on C++ arrays. As such, you need to make sure you access the bigness of the array, the size of the array, the length of the array by either using a parameter or a data member in the class. Otherwise, you must calculate it using that division method we showed earlier. As we can see the idea right here, we have that helper method build array that we were just talking about it. As you can see, I'm putting creating a new pointer object in there that I then must dereference to assign it to that array of weird thing objects, versus the idea when I create weird thing other temp where I create that right there as defining an object immediately, and then I'm able to set that other temp item into the array at the next position. We continue on with that for the rest of the steps using some never again used pointers / objects that we put inside that array, either via dereferencing with a pointer or simply assigning the value back in. When we're accessing values out of an array, it's just, again, also like Java, where we have the variable that we are going to grab the value from or pass it to as a parameter inside a method, and then the name of the array is subposition. Again, remind yourself, there is no .length, so we must make sure that we access that by use of a parameter or another class data member where we have access to the idea of how big that array is so we can refer to that properly. We see that here in code where I'm using that class size, the class data member stuff size as the loop indicator. And for my for loop is 0, loop is less than stuff size, loop ++. I use that class data member so I can loop over the size of the array, since there's no way to refer to the actual loop itself and calculate its value unless I want to do the division inside that. And again, you can see right there, I'm retrieving the values outside of that stuff sub loop. I'm retrieving that value. I call them the dot operator on that object that is stored inside there so I can print out the information directly to the console. When we're doing multidimensional arrays, it's very important that C++, unlike Java, we must specify rows first. C++ stores 2D arrays as a contiguous single array of information where each subsequent row of information is stored after the previous row inside memory. So you must do your rows first on that. It's very important that you actually organize your code specifically for that. Again, you have the type, the name, then rows subcalls. And we want to pass the columns as a parameter within the array, rows as a separate parameter. So you can, when you call it as a method, you can say myArray sub with empty brackets with a sub column count for the number of columns, passing it then the row count as that separate parameter so you can access that information.